is Leslie Widener, and I'm a 7th grade life science teacher. In this video, we are going to go over Quiz 7 on Competencies 13 and 14. Competencies 13 and 14 are life science competencies about adaptations, evolution, organisms, and the environment. So let's get started. Question number 1. A mutation in evolutionary terms can be best described as a change in an organism's DNA resulting in a physical change that gives it a disadvantage in its environment. B, a change in an organism's DNA resulting in a physical change that gives it an advantage in its environment. C, a change in an organism's DNA resulting in a chemical change that gives it a disadvantage in its environment. Or D, a change in an organism's DNA resulting in no change at all. So looking at these answer choices and thinking about a mutation, the definition of a mutation is a change in the DNA sequence. So we know that there's going to be a change. So all of them starting off with that first term here, a change in an organism's DNA, all are true. However, it's going to be a physical change that occurs. So we'll go ahead and automatically cross out C and D because of that. So here, let's see. Go ahead and cross those out. A change in an organism's DNA resulting in no change. That's not what evolution is. Evolution is change, and we want organisms to evolve because it's going to make them better for their survival. Again, it's not a chemical change that's occurring. We can't really justify that, but we can think about it here with a change being a physical change. So A and B are great options, but again, we want a mutation and evolution to make an organism better. And so it actually is an advantage in its environment. So the answer choice here is B. Okay, question number 2. Farmers and dog/horse owners use this technique when trying to make certain characteristics more prominent and to minimize other characteristics. A, mutated breeding, B, natural breeding, C, anthropologic breeding, or D, selective breeding. So here we're looking at farmers and dog/horse owners using a technique to make more characteristics prominent. So here, that is our key word. Characteristics more prominent, and minimize other characteristics. Well, mutated breeding, that is true. There is mutated breeding, but that really occurs more with plants, and it's easier to combine plants and make mutations with plants versus animals. Natural breeding, that is part of like natural selection, and I would assume dogs and horse owners, that would just be a natural process of reproduction and breeding itself, but that's not being selective and choosing which ones are going to actually help. I'm not familiar with anthropologic breeding, so I just would automatically cross that out because I haven't even really heard of that. And then selective breeding, that keyword selective is what stands out to me here. So selective breeding is going to be the answer choice. But again, it's looking at the words. We see all of them are breeding. We know that farmers and dog and horse owners are using a technique to help make characteristics more prominent. So again, going with mutated, natural, or selective, my answer choice here would be D, selective breeding. Question number 3. Darwin's theory of evolution is commonly distilled down to the phrase survival of the fittest. In this case, fittest means A, the physical traits that help an organism survive in a particular environment, B, the physical traits that harm an organism's survival in a particular environment, C, the emotional traits that help an organism survive in the particular environment, or D, the chemical traits that harm an organism's survival in a particular environment. So looking at this here, I always think it's helpful to see when questions have two that are similar in the same row. So that is just like a key indicator to me, like, okay, one of those might be the answer. It's really hard when it comes to survival of the fittest for us to measure emotional and chemical traits. So I would go ahead and remove those. You can't really see that in an organism, but the physical traits we can. And when it comes to survival of the fittest, we're going to try to see which one is going to help the organism to survive. And so reading this one here, answer number A is what stands out to me. is that the physical traits that help an organism survive in a particular environment is going to help it survive in general. And so those physical traits are important. So my answer choice here would be A. Question number 4. The picture shows two animals that live in Texas. Both animals have structures that help them survive. Which sentence best describes the function of the structures that these animals have in common? So I love this question in general because, as we know, when it comes to structure and function, everything that there is with a structure, there's a specific function. And so looking at these two animals here, I see their body composition. I see one's being like the Texas 9-banded armadillo is more rounded. The Texas horned lizard is more pointy. And they do appear to have big claws. They do have small eyes. And so those are just some things that I look at. I love a question with imagery as well, just because it gives us some context clues here. So here, both animals have pointed tails to attract predators. But again, the thing that we're looking for is survival. And so having pointed tails to attract predators does not seem like the correct answer. Both animals have small eyes that help them see clearly at night. I do believe that would be true. Both animals have tough skin to keep them warm in cold weather. That is also true. And then both animals have sharp claws that help them dig in sand. So when I'm thinking about what an animal needs to be able to survive, having small eyes to help them see is helpful. And then them having tough skin to keep them warm is helpful. Both of those are just natural things that they're going to have. But the ability to have sharp claws and help them dig in the sand is going to help them with survival. So the answer here is D. Question number 5. A food chain is shown. Which role do the grasses have in the food chain? So here I notice, again, another picture and image that I want to pay attention to. So I see grass, a grasshopper, a frog, a snake, and then an owl or an eagle. I'm not too sure, but a bird. So question number A, they break down dead organisms into simpler substances. B, they capture the energy from the sun and are food for consumers. C, they prevent the food chain from containing too many carnivores. And D, they decompose small organisms to produce energy. So looking at these answer choices, the role that grass has in the food chain, when it comes to a food chain, we're just thinking about animals eating something, right? Because all living organisms need food. So when we look at the answer choices here, I'll start with answer choice D. They decompose small organisms to produce energy. Well, when it comes to plants and grass specifically, although animals do decompose in the ground, that is not the main source of food for grass. It's going to be sunlight because of photosynthesis. Let's see, they prevent the food chain from containing too many carnivores. That's kind of hard to predict because, I mean, grass is not going to be what prevents them from having too many carnivores. That's just going to be a natural process of what the animal chooses to eat. B, they capture the energy from the sun and are food for consumers. That is true because again, sunlight is what gives energy to plants and grass specifically and are food to consumers. And then A, they break down dead organisms into simpler substances. Grass is not specifically what is breaking down the dead organism. It's just going to be decomposed and then be reabsorbed into the soil. So I would go with answer choice B here. Question number 6. Ticks, tapeworms, and leeches feed off of other organisms and in the process harm that organism. What kind of relationship does that demonstrate? So A, parasitism, B, commensalism, C, mutualism, or D, predator-prey. So it's important to know what all 4 of these are. And I'll start with from the bottom, predator and prey. Predators are living animals that eat prey, which is like what is being eaten. Mutualism means that both organisms benefit from each other. Commensalism is going to be where one organism eats another organism, but it doesn't harm or benefit, like the other organism doesn't benefit from that. And parasitism is like a parasite. So it's going to eat another organism and harm that organism. There's no benefit for the thing that's getting eaten. So here it's going to be answer option A. Question number 7. As settlers expanded west, cougars were hunted almost to extinction in order to protect cattle and other livestock. What would have been an impact of the dramatic decrease in the cougar population? So here I always like to highlight the important words, and this one here is decrease. So what's going to dramatically decrease the population based on the impact? So A, there would have been a dramatic increase in the snake population because they did not have any natural predators. B, there would have been a dramatic decrease in the rabbit and deer populations because they would have lost the main source of food. C, there would have been a dramatic increase in the rabbit and deer populations because they lost their natural predator. And D, there would have been no changes. Well, when it comes to animals and organisms, whenever you take something out of the environment, it does impact the environment in some way, and you may not see that for years. So I would not go with answer choice D. There is always going to be a cause and effect. And so taking cougars out would have an effect, and that's what the question is kind of implying. So going back to the question, so cougars were hunted to protect cattle and their livestock. So that is indicating to me that there's going to be an increase in something that they would have wanted to keep, right? And it comes to an animal. So answer choice B, there would have been a dramatic decrease in the rabbit and deer population because they lost their main source of food. Well, rabbit and deer are not eating cougars. It's kind of the other way around. So I would go ahead and eliminate question number B, or answer option B. And then C, there would have been a dramatic increase in the rabbit and deer population because they lost their natural predator. That is true. There would have been a dramatic increase in the snake population because they did not have any natural predators. Cougars are not known to eat snakes, and snakes usually hide, and they're not really hunting snakes. They're really hunting things that move more so. So I would go with answer choice C here. Question number 8. Crested floating heart is a non-native plant that grows in Texas. This plant grows very fast and can spread over the entire surface of a pond or lake, which effect most likely occurred when crested floating heart covers a lake. So here we have our choices. A, several new trees will grow along the lake shore. Deer will have to find another source of water. C, small fish will have fewer places to hide from predators. And D, less sunlight will reach the plants that grow underwater. So when it comes to crested flowing heart, it's again a non-native plant that grows in Texas. So if it's not native, it's not like it had to have been introduced. And it does spread fast and can spread over entire surface or pond of lake. So what I'm envisioning here, let me go ahead and draw a shape. So in my mind, if I had the option, I would go ahead and draw a lake, and then I would draw what would be a crested floating heart. So I'm just going to assume it's a heart and that it's covering the lake. So what kind of impact would that have on the lake itself, right? So A, several new trees will grow along the lakeshore. So we don't really know that that is going to occur based on the question that is provided. There's no indication about that. And trees would just have to continue to grow around a lake, but not new trees will grow, and that would take a long time too. Deer will have to find another source of water. Even though if it still covers it, I mean, there's still going to be a water source there for the plants themselves because plants need water. So they still would have the option to have water. So I wouldn't go with answer choice B. Small fish will have fewer places to hide from predators. It actually is the opposite effect. If there's going to be more floating hearts, then that's going to actually give them a place to hide. So that actually benefits it. And then less sunlight will reach the plants that grow underwater. I believe that's going to be true because when we have the sunlight going into the lake and for underwater plants, they're not going to have that because it's going to be covered. So answer choice D would be my choice here. Question number 9. To complete the life cycle, dead plants and animals must be broken down to return nutrients to the soil. Which organisms complete this process? So this is part of the food chain as well: decomposers, consumers, producers, and predators. So here I wanted to go ahead and pull an image about food chains. When it comes to competencies 13 and 14, I would study the food chains and know which organisms does what, just to be familiar with it. So here, decomposers in this image is mushrooms. So they are decomposed and broken down for nutrients in the soil, and also things that do die can decompose as well for the soil to then reabsorb. Consumers is organisms that are going to eat other organisms, and so or just in general, because like in this image here, we have the grasshopper, the bluebird, and the snake, and those are all consumers. So they're going to eat other organisms and just plants and animals. Producers are going to produce and make their own food. And then predators, like we have in the owl here, the apex predator, is going to hunt its food. So to complete the life cycle, dead plants and animals must be broken down to return its nutrients to the soil. The answer choice here will be A. Question number 10. Thinking about this food chain, the grasshopper could best be described as detritivore, herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore. So here we're looking at the grasshopper and we see that it's going to be eating grass and then the mouse eats the grasshopper. But what I think is very helpful is knowing what the definitions are for all of these. So when it comes to a detritivore, sorry, I have a hard time pronouncing that, it eats fungi and bacteria. So again, think about mushrooms and small organisms. When it comes to an herbivore, it's a plant-eating animal. So we see that the grasshopper is eating grass. So that's a good indication that that could be the answer. A carnivore is a flesh-eating animal. So it's going to eat other animals. So the mouse and owl are definitely carnivores because they're going to eat the other organism. And then omnivore is plant and flesh eating animal. So looking at this again, and the key word is grasshopper, and that's the one that we're paying attention to. The grasshopper is eating the grass, which is going to be a plant. So the answer is option number B for herbivore. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video and that you found it useful. Feel free to keep looking up all these things, but what I would encourage you to do is study the vocabulary and these key terms and these competencies to be successful. Thank you.